again, welcome everyone. My name is Brian Hotzik. Today we're going to be talking about Ivanti bots, and I brought two very special guests along with me here today, so I appreciate them coming. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Robert Kemeny, a senior network deployment engineer with Network Consulting Services. I'm happy to be here and talk a little bit more about bots.
Robert, and we have the esteemed Bracken.
Hi, I'm Jaron Bracken. I'm also a deployment engineer with NCSI. Not quite the expert that Robert is in bots, but been working in neurons for quite a while, and I love bots too, so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, great EPM experience. Been doing it for many years. Probably a lot of that gray in your beard came from.
A little bit.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about bots today. They really are a great piece of technology, especially in this day and age. I don't know how you guys feel, but I hear nothing but talk about AI all day long, every day. AI. And it makes a lot of promises. And it's delivering on some things, but, this is not that conversation, right? Especially when you hear the word bot, you might think, oh, AI, this is fundamentally simple. But I think it is, it's better, it's more practical, it solves more immediate issues that we're using to help out our end users. So today we're just going to go through some different scenarios, some examples. Please use the chat, the Q&A there. Drop in if you have questions or examples or things you want to talk about. We'd be happy to do that. So, Robert, tell us a little bit more about what do your customers ask you about, specifically about bots? What are they trying to solve when they bring up a conversation?
You bet. So a lot of my customers want to know how they can leverage the efficiency of their resources around IT support, meaning how do we spend less hours having to deal with the support issues that we have in our organization. So if we can bring in bots that would allow them to more efficiently know about problems in their environment that they can address in an automated fashion, that's really where I think some of the power is around bots.
Yeah, really trying to flip that script from a reactive, the customer calls me and says the problem is this, taking the fight out in the streets, right, and making it be a lot more proactive. Jaron, your experience with Endpoint Manager, we could do kind of sort of this in the past, but we didn't really do it, right? Tell us a little bit more about the differences we have from, what it looked like in the last generation of technology of Endpoint Manager versus how we're doing it.
Sure. Endpoint Manager, for those of you who are familiar with it, know that it's an extremely powerful tool. You can do all sorts of things with it, but it wasn't the most intuitive, and you had to have skill sets around it. You needed to know what you were doing. You needed to know what the console looked like, where to click on things. And more importantly, you needed to know how to automate stuff via scripting. So you could absolutely do a lot of the same actions that we're going to present to you in bots. However, it required knowledge that not everybody has. And so the interface is a lot different. There's no drag and drop. What you see is what you get. It was, here's the thing I want to do, and here's the 4 scripts that I need to make it work with an installation package, and maybe a report, maybe some sort of signal back that things worked or didn't work. But it really was, you were inventing the wheel every time you did it.
Yeah, and I found those were very difficult to maintain. Right? Hey, it works now. Oh, that employee left. They don't work for us anymore. I don't have that script, right? So that drag and drop interface, more of a systemic way of solving this is, really what bots are all about. Enough talk. Why don't we get to the showing part where let's go through some examples of, again, just what do customers ask for? What are some sample bots? How can we make sure that we educate everyone on just kind of the basics on how they function, maybe some tips and tricks on, troubleshooting, various things like that. And we dive right into it. The short straw is going to go first, but let's go ahead and dive right in.
All right.
Perfect. Okay, so what we're looking at here is our Neurons Bots interface, and I have a couple of examples that we can kind of step through that might be interesting in helping us just to kind of understand the simplicity of bots and how it can help us to leverage our resources in the most efficient way. So these are some examples that our customers have really enjoyed. Let's take a look at maybe our AV report to start with. So a bot consists of stages And when we look at a bot, we have on the left-hand side our stage editor. Our stage editor are the components that we can potentially select and then drag into our bot and connect to create our workflows. If we're ever curious about what's available, we can always search by keywords. For example, if we need to add an email report and you have to spell email correctly, it would show up filtered, and then on the left-hand side, we can just simply drag that in and connect it into our workflow. If there is a particular stage that we come across that we're not sure what it does, we can click on the information about that stage and it will tell us what that is. If we've inadvertently dragged something in and we don't know what it does into our workflow, we certainly can select it and get that same information dialog box here of what this query and this bot is doing. So I think Jaron would agree that some of the things that we like to talk about are pieces of information that we might not know about, like maybe BitLocker encryption or our antivirus or things like that. So in this particular bot, as an example, and we'll circle back to BitLocker, I have a bot here that will go out and query what we call the security health of the target. And it's going to query for things like the anti-spyware, antivirus, or firewall, or those kinds of things that are going to be of interest to us in understanding the security of that endpoint. Once we've queried for that information, we can pass that information down by adding some filters into our stage. So when we connect them, we have an opportunity to filter based on components from that first query. We can select them on the right-hand side, give them values, and filter based on those different values. At the end, after we've decided what information we want to correlate, then we can send an email report and have that email report contain that information of each of the endpoints that we've done. So this is a really quick, very fast overview of a bot that would go out and query the endpoint for the security health, its antiviruses, for things like when was the last time it scanned or whether if it was turned on or not, and then subsequently email that report. And that can be configured to go to your help desk, to the person that triggered the bot, or things like that as an example.
And how long did it take you to make this?
Exactly 3 minutes.
3 minutes. So I was going through a little mental checklist in my mind of the things that he was doing in there and what we would need to do inside of EPM to be somewhat on parity with it. It was a lot more than 3 minutes, probably more like 3 hours. And there's not a way to have a native, this task ran, and here are the results of that task emailed out. So automatically you're already doing things that would have been extremely difficult, if not impossible, in EPM. Now, I'd like to take the spotlight for just a second here, because you are really good at the complex, the made-to-order bots. I'm not, but I can show you a very simple bot that you can use to get started, to cut your teeth on what it is to create a bot and how to use them. And to do that, I go to create a bot, and I start from a template. And as luck would have it, the very first template is clean disk, and I'm going to click on create here. And we'll call this my Grub Club clean disk action, and I'll create the draft. Now, I just clicked on this and I typed in a name, and we already have quite a few actions here in our stage. The first one is to schedule. Do I want to schedule this? And I can either schedule it, or I can use this thing called custom action where I can run it on demand, which is what I'm going to do. I like to have the on-demand capabilities. And in that menu, I'll just tell it, this is, clean disk Grub Club. I did that backwards from the name, just for fun. But looking through this, you can see, okay, we're looking at the session information, and I don't know what that means, but I can look at this stage information, and it'll tell me exactly what session information is looking at. And we're looking at the user and the device and seeing, hey, what kind of device is this? And from there, we can have these different forks. We have one that says platform equals PC, or this one that has platform equals Mac. And from there, we take different, different paths to know what we're going to do. So I have a free disk space here. So we're running a query here to look at disk space. We can get drive letter, volume information, total space, free space. So that's the data that's available to us. And then again, we're going to take that information and we're going to look for a condition and say, hey, if the percent free space is less than or equal to 50 on the C drive, go ahead and run the clean disk action. If not, the bot just ends. And we ran successfully. We just didn't need to go through all the actions. We aged out there at the end. And with Mac, it's the same thing, other than now we're going to go and look at, instead of the C drive, we're going to go and look at the root. But we're still looking for that, 50% or less. The clean disk action, this one's canned. You could obviously create your own, but you do have a couple of options in here. So, this one's for Mac. Are there trash folders that I should do? Are there additional folders that I can do cleanup in? And then on the Windows side, we have something similar. Do I include the recycle bin? Do I add my own folders? What's the date that I should go back? Does it need to be older than 30 days, older than 90 days? And so we have options here to add, just some additional benefit to these things. But honestly, I didn't have to do any of that. I could have just set the trigger, saved and published, and it would have just ran. And I required almost no knowledge to do this. I needed to be able to log in. I needed to know what a bot was and how to create one based off of a template. And then from there, it'll do all of the work for you, which is something that you could not do in EPM. Again, that was a very powerful tool, but it had a steep learning curve. And the entry point to be able to do something like this was probably a good year or two using the software.
Exactly. And I really like what you stated at the very beginning of that when we talked about that stage where you could choose to have it be something that was a custom action and that maybe your help desk needs a bot that would triage this and help them understand the percentage of clean disk space before running the utility. Or like you mentioned, it could be something that was scheduled and maybe it runs monthly and just automatically cleans out that disk space, preventing the users from calling in the first place and saying, hey, I ran out of disk space.
Yeah. Preventative actions, if it's more than 50% free, no harm, no foul, we just move on. But if not, then we're going to go in and attack some of those things. And you can, of course, build off of this. Yeah, you can have escalation. Well, we ran it on the 50%. We ran it through these folders. We didn't regain that 50%. Let's go into phase 2 or phase 3, where we can have more actions that escalate the things that we go and delete. Maybe we're going into your internet cache. Maybe we're going into my pictures or my documents or whatever, just to try and get that data back so that our computer doesn't end up stopping, because that generates, of course, an incident, and now we're contacting the help desk.
Exactly. An anecdote about that, one time I had a customer that wanted to configure that to clean up the downloads folder and ran into a bunch of trouble because apparently that's where some users like to store their files, is in the downloads folder.
My parents are those users. Luckily, they don't work anymore. They're not in the workforce. They're both retired. But yes, you crack open that download folder. It's like Indiana Jones cracking open the tomb. Well, gosh, what is that? The Ark of the Covenant. There's just stuff that goes way back in there that I don't think we need it anymore. So yeah, that's funny.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
Yeah, Robert, can you walk us through a couple of more scenarios of, let's spice it up a notch, right? What are some more complicated workflows that customers have asked you about that, have been interesting or particularly helpful?
Sure. So one of them that's kind of interesting that would be a little bit more complicated would be something like maybe logging off idle sessions from your users who have a tendency to walk away from their workstations and leave them unlocked or unsecured. So I can show you one that has a couple of more stages in it, a little more complicated in the sense that we want to know about each of the users that might be using that particular workstation. So as I walk you through this one, we can notice that, and we'll kind of, just to backtrack a little bit, show you exactly where, Jaren was talking about the custom action. If this is something that needs to be scheduled, we can certainly schedule that to run on that weekly schedule for our target groups. Let's see, let's pick that one, and then whoop. Clicked off of it for a second. We'll pick the 100% of our target scope, making sure that we're running it for the devices that are online, and then scheduling that to be that weekly or that monthly schedule makes it something that will run in the background and take care of that and log off your idle resources. This one is similar in the sense that it's going to check for sessions, what's included in that session information. Like Jaron mentioned, we don't necessarily need to know or know the code. We can click on this information dialog and view what it's going to go collect. And what we're interested in here, obviously, is the user information from the sessions that are on there, maybe some idle times that we're measuring, the time it was logged in, so that we can do some math and things like that we're going to pass on to our next stage. So again, as we connect these arrows down, we're going to do some filtering where the value for how long has it been idle is very long. Those are available to us by simply clicking the click and the control key and the space bar and being able to insert placeholders from previous queries of stages that we've done. What makes this one particularly interesting is that we might have shared resources. Maybe there's a kiosk or the office's greeting lounge has a desk that's shared by a few different administrative assistants that might use that. We need to be able to enumerate each of those sessions for each of the users, and that's what this run this block for each of them are, so that if we find that maybe somebody was doing maintenance and the administrator got logged on but didn't log off, or if Susie was there and logged in and didn't log off, and then April came and wanted to do that, we can enumerate each of those, and then for each of them that meet the criteria, we can run this action of logging off that user, and we're grabbing that information from the block of where this was each for each instance that we found in there. If that makes sense. Let me pick one other example that would be a good example of some complicated workflows. This one relates a little bit to Windows 11 migrations. That's kind of a hot topic, as we understand that support is waning for older versions. So let me get back to that real quick. And we'll pick this one here, which this bot combines a couple of different things that we want to do. So the first step in this one is leveraging our Microsoft Teams interaction that allows us to reach out via Teams to our users and ask them some questions, almost a survey, if you will. So in this particular Teams interaction, I've titled it with a Windows 11 upgrade. I'm going to ask them about when they might like to upgrade. So it takes a little bit of that pain off of that scenario of having to upgrade and letting the user say, right now is not a convenient time for me. I'd like to push this out a little bit, or you can give them some options.
Just don't give them the never option.
That's right. Got to make sure we're in compliance. So in this case, I've created a couple of different buttons for them to select, giving them some dates. Hey, it says we're going to upgrade to Windows 11 in the message that we sent to them, and then says, would you like to do it on November 20th, November 27th, or maybe even December 1, giving them an option to select the date that they're ready to do that upgrade on. And then from there, based on the choice from the user, we have some environment variables that we can write to that endpoint that have the value of that particular time that they chose. If they had picked the 27th, then we can write in that variable name of Windows 27th for our Win update. As we join those back together, we can send them a message that says, thank you for choosing the date, put that date in there, and give them some instruction on please leave that on as we prepare to do that. And the reason that this bot is kind of interesting would be that then once we have these surveys that have gone out to our users and they've all picked their dates, with devices, we can come in and create a dynamic device group that would let us know who is it that's ready for deployment on that 27th. And so that dynamic group built in our devices would take us to those users. In this case, in my lab, I only have a handful. There's user endpoint 2 has selected the 27th, and now we can once again leverage a bot to do the actual Windows upgrade, an in-place upgrade with a reboot based on that target group of those users who have selected the 27th. That bot can be scheduled to do that, and it really takes the pressure off of your staff having to do that, lets the user give some of their input into when it's convenient for them to do it, and then still rolls out that upgrade to them.
Yeah, thinking about the amount of time and the amount of administrative effort that goes into something like a Windows 11 upgrade, obviously there's a lot to set up technologically. We have to be able to verify machines are eligible for the update and install the update and verify the update. But there's also the scheduling component with the user and interacting with the user. And that can add up really quickly, especially if somebody's who's busy or they have a role that doesn't necessarily allow for blocks of not being able to access their computer. This gives them control over it. And it means I'm not trying to interact with 400 people. Hey, when's a good time for me to do this update? Oh, I don't know, whenever you want. Okay, but we need to schedule it. It takes that out of it, and it just means we have one less thing that we have to worry about, and the user has one less thing that they feel they don't have control over by giving them the ability to do it themselves. I'm a big fan of that.
Perfect.
And we did an actual whole webinar on that. So check out our YouTube page if you want to know more about specifically Windows 11 upgrade. There's even some built-in templates now that Ivanti has for that. Jaron, let me ask you really quick. You both of you have mentioned kind of custom versus scheduled several times now. Can you walk us through why would I schedule it? Why would I do custom? What's the difference? Where does that show up? Just walk us through what that's like.
Sure. So looking at a device, and I've just chosen one here from my lab, I have over here actions. Now these actions at the top, these are built-in actions. They're set by Ivanti. I don't really have any control over them. However, the custom actions right beneath it, you'll notice, look at that. There's my clean disk grub club action. So as a help desk technician or an admin of some kind, I can go into a device and without scheduling it, without running through any reports or queries, I can simply click on clean disk. And it'll say, hey, do you want to run it now if the device is online? Or run it online or queue it for the next time it is online. Typically, you always want to choose online. And I'll just click run. And the bot will take place now. This machine is actually offline, so that was a bad example. But that's all it is. You go to a device and you can click on it. So adding that to adding that arrow to our quiver of things we can do to help troubleshoot a device with little to no contact with the end user. In the past, maybe this would have been let me log in and while you're watching, I'll remote control the computer and I'll click around through the various places that I know we can regain storage from. And, I'll go and do all of that. We've taken that user interaction and the time away that it would take a technician to do that. And we put it in a button that now they can click on and say, oh yeah, I can just click on this and now it'll run. I don't have to have that interaction. I don't know about you guys. I don't like talking to people. People are the worst. But if I can just tell a computer to go and run a job, I'm all for it.
Absolutely. Yep.
Robert, you were showing a little bit more complex bots. Can you walk us through, hey, I'm starting out with this. I'm starting to get more complicated than just like the disk space cleanup one. How can I test this? How can I troubleshoot as I'm going through building these? How do I make it so I'm not, boiling the ocean and doing all of it all at once or accidentally testing on all of my machines? Can you help us with like the development cycle of a bot and walk us through that?
You bet. So I picked here one that is popular as well. It's kind of a printer troubleshooting bot that would go out and query the device for maybe its default printer. Maybe it would try and ping the printer, and then if it wasn't working, maybe you want to restart the spooler, or maybe they didn't have it installed to begin with, and we'd like to install that printer. But as you're building a bot, we have the option to understand what is happening with the stages that we put in, using things like the control click button to select multiple stages. So in here, I'm going to select the first 2 stages. And then there, on the right-hand side, we can see that, hey, maybe we'd like to run just this component on just this target endpoint to see what happens in our bot. So we can choose multiple segments. Maybe we want to do most of it. And then once we have these stages selected, we can do that and run those. Let's see if this will change for us. This particular one, yep. That was a bad example. Let's stick with what we have here. Click and we'll run those contiguous. Oh, I picked a bad one once again. Let's try this and then run. So this allows us to do a little bit of troubleshooting and triage as we're building the bot and say, what would this look like? What would these queries run? What is the result of this query on my target? We can see that that's running, although my screen isn't quite cooperating. We'll see the results here in a minute show up, and we'll be able to click on them and understand what was the result of that query and that test. We'll go back here. Oh, I might be stuck. But
you'll have to forgive Robert.
Yeah.
He's working on a Mac right now, so he's obviously challenged.
A little bit Mac challenged.
It's Greek.
Allow.
It's Greek.
Yeah. So while Robert has to reboot to fix that or whatever it is, Jaron, tell us a little bit more about interactions with other components inside of the Ivanti console. Like, for example, the agent, right? I hear a lot coming back from customers. Well, how do I run an inventory scan? How do I do patching? Walk me through what can and cannot be done as it relates to interacting with agents and policies and remote control and all that kind of stuff in the bot.
Okay. So yeah, just going off of, we'll just start from blank here. Just creating a blank template. Devices, of course, if we're going to interact with an agent. To start with, bots can be as complex as you would like them to be, and we have options to just run a command. You want to run a command, if you know the command line, and Neurons agents have a lot of things that you can run via command line to make them do a check-in, do an inventory scan, install software that they should have, run a patch scan, etc. You can absolutely just run those however you would like. So if I were to type in I don't know, just run a command under action here. Oh, that's del command. There we go, command action. I'm just going to tell it to go and do something, run as a system. Most people, though, don't want to get that deep or don't have the time to get that deep. They can't. So we have other commands that are built in that you can just run as. If you spell inventory right, oh look, it even knew. I didn't put the N in, and it still knew what I was talking about. Run an inventory scan. If I drag that and drop that in here, I don't have to configure anything. All I need to do is put it in here and make it part of the flow. You can add arguments if you would like. They're not required. One of them is like run now, which I actually don't think you need anymore. Run now? I don't think you need it anymore, but you can add it in and have it do something like that. No big deal. I don't know. I don't think patching is part of it. I don't think you can do any kind of patching interaction with the agent from a bot. Robert, I know inventory is an easy one. Are there others? I don't know.
You can trigger an app distribution.
App distribution, that was the other
Correct.
one. Yeah. So if we do distribution.
And to be clear, there is an install software action, but it is not connected to app distribution. Just to make sure
Correct.
To clarify that.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a little bit.
Yep. Sure. So there's a few here that you can do. Patching goes outside of this. It has its own whole ecosystem, and so we're not going to do patching via a bot. But unless you want to do the command line thing. The built-in ones out of the box, I think those two are probably it, unless you know of any others that I'm forgetting, Robert.
Nope, that's a good one.
Yeah, I think having that run inventory scan combined with what you just showed, Jaron, of having it in action would be very helpful. Oh, this looks out of date. Let me hit a button right here.
Yep, and it's nice. You just click the drop down here, and there's all of our distribution packages, and you just pick one. It's not able to deploy or to show the logos for some reason, but that's it. And you can, only non-compliant devices are going to be targeted, or all devices being targeted. So there's some little intelligence there. Normally, we don't run app distributions inside of bots unless it's part of a bigger picture thing. Normally, app distribution would take place in its own menu system because you can have a little bit more control there. And you can have it be dynamic as well. But it is available to us if we needed to. Do you have any examples, Robert, of when we would include an app distribution inside of a bot as part of a bigger picture, something that we're doing?
Sure. So I think the printer install might be an interesting one if we needed to install the full application of a printer suite that included the scanner and the appropriate driver and those kinds of things, where that's not necessarily an application that we would distribute everywhere. But if we were to set up a bot that queried the device for what printers were there and then said, oh yeah, we need to trigger this particular application distribution because it belongs here in conjunction with this printer on that device.
Yeah. Another one would be updates, Windows updates, especially lately for some reason. We've had a lot of users complaining about Windows updates that have massive vulnerabilities that just don't want to install. And it's nothing wrong with Neurons. It actually fails in any way that you want to install it. So a bot can be written, and we've had these discussions with customers of perhaps we have a Windows update health bot that will go through and do a few things. Maybe we just do something simple and start off with a NFC or an SFC scan now, but maybe we escalate as we go through, checking to see if it's functional, to include perhaps we've built an app distribution package that will reinstall the Windows Update service. I'm making it up, obviously, but those are things that we can absolutely do inside of a bot and leverage app distribution, because there are things that app distribution does, especially in that space, that it does better than a bot can. So why not integrate them and have the best of both worlds?
Absolutely.
Hey, Robert, I see up there at the top, define inputs, define variables. Can you walk us through a little bit more about why I would use those, what they're for?
Sure. So speaking of applications, that's a very good model to do that in. So for example, if we were to choose to create a bot that wanted to go out and search for a specific piece of software, we can have a template that would leverage the input or a variable that would say, hey, I want to search for this particular software. So we can add a placeholder for that software name, and then at the runtime of this bot, we would put in the particular name of the software. Maybe it was Adobe or Reader or something that we wanted to search for, and we could take that and pass that into the bot as the value of the application that we wanted to search for and do.
Tell me a little bit more about, you gave an example in some of the Windows 11 upgrade around Teams. What kind of integration does that look like? Does it then show up as a bot for them? Just walk us through a little bit. If I want to use that Teams, what does that mean to me? How do I set it up?
Sure. So Teams is integrated from the Microsoft tenant perspective. So we create an API integration, give it the correct permissions within the Teams tenant to be able to interact with the user on their desktop instance of Teams. So once we've created that particular integration, then we can start to use the Teams interaction stage or a message stage or even a Teams rating stage. I think that we have an example from a template that I can pull up relatively quickly. Give me just a second to do that. And this is from a template that Ivanti is provided for us, and it does show kind of the depth and complexity of bots. Let me pull that up here 1 second.
It somewhat resembles what I think the plans for a nuclear bomb would be. It's really impressive in how complex it works. It's actually simple if you follow the flow through, but yeah, as you zoom out here, it is impressive.
Yeah, this one might be a little bit more complex to get all the way on our screen, at least on this particular Mac.
It doesn't want to shrink the boxes.
Well, and you're going to be using it on a much bigger screen than you are a little bit.
Sure, but the example that I wanted to point out was that this particular bot that has quite a few of these. Let's maybe save that draft and come back out of it here. Just a second.
Should we maybe pull it up on the Windows device here and see if it looks any better, just to show off the grandeur?
We could try that for sure.
And I'll even move off to the side and let you run it.
I think it should be here at the bottom. I could try one more time. Yeah, no,
there we go. There it is. So I'll actually let you handle the controls here.
Yeah. So thanks, Sharon. It just shows the level of complexity that we can have in running these different stages. This particular Grub Club instance of the Windows 11 upgrade will do things like Jaron had mentioned very early in our demo here about checking for Windows 11 readiness. Is it compliant? And then doing those checks and then prompting the user for those kinds of inputs. So let's find an example of a stage here where we're letting the user know what we're doing. So it's addressing this here. And in this particular Teams message stage, it's going to prompt them with a message about the goal of it to be, of IT is to upgrade all of the devices. And then interaction with them, presenting them with some options and button types to do that. One of the interesting things that they put on the end of this here is a Microsoft Teams survey. In this case, for Windows 11 upgrade, it would survey the user and say, how was the experience? Rate it from 1 to 5. We can put in smiley faces and sad faces and have them select, or we can have the stars, 1 star or 5 star, those kinds of things. So the Teams interaction, once it's set up on the back end with the API integrations necessary to make that work, and then these stages that we've kind of talked a little bit about here in interaction, asking them for input versus messaging them to let them know what's going on versus the Teams rating, right? If we were to drag that in here and then look at this, we can see that we can give them options, like I had mentioned, for good or bad or the stars, if we want to do that kind of thing. Or there's even one in here for emojis, like we mentioned, sad face, happy face, those kinds of things that we can put right in there. And this might even be useful after a patching session, right? Oh, yeah. So if you've pushed out patches and you want to survey your users about how was that patching experience? What did that look like in terms of did the patch install successfully? Give us a rating or those kinds of things to get feedback from your users about how that's working in your environment.
And hopefully they don't just say it was terrible.
That's right.
It's not helpful feedback.
Nobody wants
but no one loves patching, right? No one loves to be patched anyway.
For sure.
Another thing I love about this bot and why I like to point it out is it actually has a front end. So as you run the bot, you as the admin have options to tell it what to do, right? Mm-hmm. So what are the options that this bot gives us when we were to, like, if we were to run it? And you're welcome to use a machine if you wanted to run it against something.
Sure.
UEFI is always there for you. It's a machine that I use to do Windows 11 upgrades.
So with those interactions and messaging, we can do things like display messages not only to the user and telling them what that prompt is, but to maybe the technician that's running the bot as well. And those messages can pop up on the technician's console saying, hey, we couldn't proceed. There was insufficient disk space in this case, so that they know what else they might need to triage. This one says they've previously deferred the bot, and so there's some information that we can leverage in that sense.
And even as you initially run the bot, you're given a choice. Do you want to install Windows? Or do you want to check to see if Windows is compatible? Yeah. Or do you want to give the user the ability? I can't remember all of the options, but it gives us a choice as to which branch to take right out of the bat to know, hey, I don't want to upgrade this computer. I just want to see if it can be upgraded. And if it can, then I want you, the bot, to interact with that user, schedule it, and then make it happen. Yeah. I can also just say, install Windows now. Install the upgrade now and let it go.
Just force it.
Yeah. So that was a portion as a I'm not the SME in bots. Robert definitely is, but as somebody who was around bots, I didn't know that was a possibility, that as you hit go, the bot will actually tell us, hey, what do you want me to do? And we have an option to choose those things, and then it goes off of that branch based off of our choice, which I thought was pretty neat.
Absolutely. Agreed. Let me see if we can find that, and we can target that one and run it real quick. Thought it would show up towards the end here. We can use this one, right? Oh, that's the one. So if we were to choose it to run now, let's pick that. You said the UEFI one is in there, right?
Yeah, and you're welcome to use any UEFI or lab client. Another thing that I would like to point out is not only is the choice given to us and feedback given to the user, we can also get email reports along the way. So we could run it on a group of computers and have a report sent back saying, The following computers are eligible. The user chose to schedule it. The following computers are eligible. The user chose to install it now, or the following computers are ineligible. And we can track it throughout the life cycle of the bot. As the machine moves from one section to another, we can get reports all along the way, and we can email them. By default, we can email them to the tech who runs it, but I think we can email it to distribution lists as well if we wanted.
Yes, absolutely. That's correct.
So it's important that we have these fancy structures and these workflows, but it's also important that we're able to monitor what's happening in those workflows, because it doesn't help us to have this giant bot that if a process gets stuck somewhere or a machine has to opt out for whatever reason, if we don't know about that, the bot doesn't run and the Windows machine doesn't get upgraded, which is a problem as we approach October.
Exactly. So I think we found one that we can kind of show what that would look like. We've picked it from our custom actions menu and started that running. And then another interesting thing about bots in particular is that if we do action failed, interesting, we can go and we can check on that in our bots menu to do a little bit of triage as well. Let's see if we can find that.
And I apologize. I brought up the Windows 11 thing, so Robert wasn't ready for that.
Oh, no worries. Real-time demos are fun. No, we can do it. Absolutely. Okay.
We could have 5 webinars on Windows 10 to Windows 11 upgrades. So a lot of material there.
For sure. So as we trigger a bot, on the left-hand side, you can see that there's kind of a trigger history there, the attempted firing of it. If we have multiple devices that are in scope, it'll tell us of those which were available. If there were some that are offline, it'll tell us that here, and some errors and things like that. So as we see in this bot, we can follow along as those numbers flow through our bot. So the circles obviously mean that it's something that's in progress and happening. The exclamation means that there was an error at that particular stage. The green check mark mean that it was successful in flowing through that stage. So this allows us to come in and look at that bot in a pseudo real-time way in which we can see, well, where did it stop and which branches did it take and where did it go before it aired out. So it gives us an opportunity to leverage the bot itself to do a little bit of triage. And then for these particular items, you can click into any one of them to see the information specific to that stage. And if there were some errors, there's an opportunity for us to look at what that error is and get some feedback depending on what stage and what information we're passing to it. Don't see one here that I can click on that would show us that. Let me back out a little. In our stage, looks like we're mostly green going through there, and maybe it either already had Windows 11 on it or
it could be it's offline. Windows 11's already on it. So, but the idea is you can troubleshoot it, you can watch the flow, and you can make adjustments to the bot as necessary as we test things. Which of course you're going to want to test all of this out. Don't go and run this on everybody right away. Make sure you do your due diligence on that.
For sure. Yep. Make sure you have a plan for that rollout.
But absolutely. Something like this, I'll go out on a limb here and say what that bot is and what it can do is nigh on impossible. I almost said impossible. Me fail English? Impossible. It's nearly impossible. That's not a thing that it could do. Maybe you could get 80% of the functionality out of it, but it would have taken a team of people to do it. And obviously this one was built by a team. But it's all there. It's drag and drop, and it's somebody like me who I'm not familiar with programming. I'm not very good at scripting, but I know what's happening, and I can see what's happening, and I can make changes to it because it's visual. So, big fan of bots because they can cover someone like me who doesn't know anything other than how to spell bot, all the way up to someone like you who can run through a workflow like this, interact with the end user, get reports, and have things happen without ever touching anything besides the go button.
Exactly. And like Jaron mentioned, the complexity is really kind of up to your imagination, right? So if you can dream it, we can probably do it. Here's kind of an example of something that, again, is pretty simple, but they didn't have a pre-built stage so that we can go in and add that customization in if we want to. And this is for something like enabling BitLocker. So we do have a stage for querying BitLocker to go and understand, is that available on all of its drives? And then maybe we want to go ahead and enable that. And so here's I know we mentioned that AI is not all that it needs to be quite yet at the beginning of our webinar here, but we used AI to just ask it to generate a quick script that would enable BitLocker on our C drive, and we can copy and paste that right in here. And we can see that it gives us kind of our traditional PowerShell editor. And then once we're in that editor, we can make sure it's doing the things that we want it to do. Maybe escrowing our key away somewhere can be part of that. And then we can leverage this bot, because it didn't have a stage here, by adding our own custom scripting to enable BitLocker and then send us a report with those parameters of what we encrypted or what the result of that was.
Yes, and there is supposed to be BitLocker key escrow coming in the product. We don't have a date, obviously, but I assume when that happens, there's going to be a built-in action just for it so that it can load the encryption and then escrow the key to the cloud.
Perfect. Agreed. Anxiously awaiting for that.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for coming on today and talking to us about bots. I thought there was some great concepts and examples and things like that. So great job. Thank you very much for attending today.
Hey, thanks for having us.
You bet.
Okay. Everyone, appreciate you attending today. If you have any specific questions or examples or things like that, feel free to reach out to your NCSI salesperson. We'd love to talk to you more and teach you more about bots. So thanks everyone for joining.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.